press into graduation and become alumni to do what God has anointed you to do. Thank you for joining us today. So we're transitioning now to women and leading. We're going to have joining us Minister Keila Ellis, who's Associate Youth Minister at Shiloh. We've got Reverend Lakeisha Womack, who is the founder of Rethinking Church Strategies. And we have Sister Olivia Stinson, educator, blogger, mental health advocate, and social media manager. We're so excited that you ladies are joining us today. We want to talk about ladies and the election. There's the perspective of running as a candidate, which I'm sure Bishop Melanie can talk to us about. And then there's a perspective of looking at candidates as a voter. So we want to get both of those perspectives first. When you're talking or thinking about women and politics, what are some of the challenges that women encounter, and how do they impact your engagement in the voting process? And I'm going to direct that first to Minister Keila Ellis.
Hi, thank you so much for including me in the conversation. I feel like one of the major challenges that women encounter is the idea of gender bias and expectation. I feel like there's too many times that women constantly get placed into a situation of comparison with men in terms of what they can accomplish or what they should have accomplished or what they might be able to accomplish simply based on their gender. And I think that comes up all too often. One of the second great big challenges that I feel like women come up against is sexual harassment in the workplace and workplace violence. I feel like no matter where we go, when we see women in positions of leadership, including voting and different things like that, there's this risk that women have to constantly be aware of, that they may be targeted simply because they are women. They may not have done anything wrong, but the insecurity of others can become a place of potential violence towards women. And then lastly, one of the great challenges that I feel like women encounter is the imposter syndrome, feeling like because they're not seen in that particular space, that maybe they don't deserve to be there. And then there's this constant, overtaking of maybe I'm not meant for this, maybe I shouldn't be here. And there's all of these other obstacles that women have to jump over because they don't see themselves there, so they may not feel like they belong. Those are my top three challenges that I feel like women in any position of leadership face. Thank you.
Wow, great points. Thank you for sharing. Reverend Womack.
Yeah, so I think Minister Ellis gave some great examples. I would just add, in the context of running for a political office, one of the biggest challenges that women face is raising money. When you look at how much it costs to run in an election, I know for a U.S. House seat is upwards of $10 million. And so, most women, especially Black women, have this notion that I can do it and I can make it happen. But to run an effective political campaign, you can't do it by yourself. You have to have a team. And it's a real struggle for some women to ask for the help that you need and to trust that you have a team of people who will be in your corner, who will have your back. And when people start saying that the polls aren't moving in your favor, that they're going to say, it doesn't matter, we're going to keep pushing. And I think that that's one of the things that we're seeing with Vice President Harris. When she came out the gate, she had a team of people who were already supporting her and endorsing her. And if she didn't have that support already built in, I don't think that she would be in the position that she's in. But people who have, talked about the experience before she officially announced, said she was on the phone. She was calling, she was asking for support so that she could make sure that that support was visible. And so I think that if women are interested in running for office, whether in the church or in the political arena, we have to be willing to ask for support, but we also have to be willing to ask for money, because it takes money to run a quality campaign.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Sister Olivia, we're looking at some of the challenges that women have, whether we're talking about on the ballot, running for a position as a candidate, or looking at the voters' experience, some of the challenges women have. Can you talk to us for a few minutes about that?
Absolutely. So I think one of the big things, and I think Kayla and Reverend Womack already touched on that, but I think it's just very hard sometimes as women. We already are kind of behind the 8 ball, unfortunately. And so it's, to me, I think one of the most critical things that Sister Womack already said was having the support. A lot of times we kind of take that part for granted, and having support is one thing, but having genuine, authentic support is totally different, because it's one thing for me to say like, oh yeah, Sister Ellis, Sister Womack, I'm behind you, but then I'm also behind you speaking about you. And you want to make sure that you have those people that when you're running or when you're doing something, you know that without the shadow of a doubt, if something is said about you, I know without the shadow of a doubt, they're going to have my back. They're going to make sure that I'm covered. They're going to make sure that they are fighting for me along with fighting with me. And that's a lot of things that we unfortunately don't see. And I do believe that Vice President Harris does have a good crew of people. From, what I've seen, that she really does have a good crew of people. But it's important to have those that are willing to speak on your behalf and to really support you, because those are the people, it's the people around you that really get the momentum going. Because it's one thing for me to say I'm running and I can speak on my behalf, but when I have other people that will speak on my behalf, that's when it changes. That's when it's different and it looks good, because then okay, they're actually willing to speak on her behalf, so she's actually doing something. So I think for me, the biggest thing is just having like that authentic and genuine support going into any type of election or anything.
Absolutely. Great response. I want to give an opportunity for Bishop Miller to specifically speak to this as a candidate. These young ladies have shared some of the challenges that women face on both sides of the equation. Can you give us some perspective from what you just experienced with your campaign?
Oh, yes. They say it's lonely at the top. It's actually very lonely trying to get to the top. But as was brought up so eloquently by Reverend Womack and Miss Livia and Miss Kayla, you have to have that support network of people, but that money piece is for real. It is not cheap even to run for bishop in the AME Zion Church, because you do have to travel. You have to get to know people. And it's not just the physical travel. You have to invest in the technology as you want to reach young people, because you have to go across the board. Even though most of the delegates may be older adults, but we had a good number of young adults voting this year. You have to be able to connect with them, because they're talking to one another, they're talking to their pastors, they're talking to everyone. And so you have to be able to connect. But number one, as was stated, was that support. And I have to say, a lot of people were like, well, women have to support women. Yes, we do, and we do. And a lot of times the women are behind the scenes, and a lot of women were behind the scenes supporting my campaign. I don't know why everybody is behind the scenes, is not public, but if they're still there and they're sending me checks and doing all these prayers and everything to ensure that I have the opportunity to be elected, that was so vital, that the women and men, it had to be across the board. You can't just be biased and, feed yourself to any particular age group or gender. And this is the same thing with this election. It has to be a broad spectrum of people against age, nationality, gender, all walks of life have to be addressed. And young people, as Reverend Harris said earlier, are a big block of voters. And we have to make sure that our support networks are talking. We train them to talk the talk that we need these young people to understand what we're saying and be able to vote.
All right. So we've heard now from the bishop herself, one who's been on both sides of that equation. And for ladies, it can be difficult. We need the support, both physically with you saying it. We need the support financially with you sewing into the campaign. And we really need the support of one another to be able to stand through all of the stuff that goes along with it. And y'all know what we're talking about as we spill in the tea. We really need real support. So thank you, ladies, for joining us and sharing from the ladies' perspective. We're going to be moving forward, talking to the guys, and we've got a different question for them. But when we do what we do, we really have to talk one to the other and be supportive of one another. And I know, Bishop Miller, as I watched your campaign, there were different people, not just ladies, but different people that did things that helped your campaign. So, Reverend Dion, if you can just speak for just a moment about what we can do to be able to support the ladies when we're talking to the men. What are some things that the men can do that will help support ladies that are campaigning and voting or registering to vote?
Thank you. I think Olivia hit the nail right on the coffin. We need to be authentic when we support our candidates that are running. I think right now, when we had a candidate come out and state that she was going to run, and I say she was going to run, so much negativity kind of came out of that, and we're spilling the tea, so we're just going to call it like it is.
Yes.
It was a lot of negativity coming out from, you know, the opposite sex about a woman who was going to take this office and run for this particular office. And it was hurtful to kind of see what we were seeing in the blogs. Bishop stated, you know, we are all on social media. So the things that we were kind of watching about this particular candidate running for this office, and I would venture out to say, you know, from the male perspective, it was kind of hurtful to kind of see. So I think we just need to be authentic in our support, and it needs to be like we're not going to not support in front of you, but then talk, you know, bad on your name behind your back. So definitely just getting out there and supporting the candidate, whoever you're going to vote for. I mean, just vote and be authentic supporters of those particular candidates, because at the end of the day, you know, we have strong Black women who can lead us to the next level that we need to be at in this country. So just being that support system.
Thank you for making those comments. So we are going to have to join the conversation Sister Veronica Shaw. Veronica is the Charlotte District YACM chairperson, and we're excited to have her here. And she's got a young adult with her, Andre, for Moore's Sanctuary, Amy Zion Church. And we want to know from you, as we're spilling the tea, when you hear voting, what are our young adults saying right here in the Charlotte district about voting?
Well, the young adults that Nicole actually it seems like she was excited. She's happy to see women in leadership, like our Bishop, Melody Miller. Is awesome. And I think it's also inspiring, and it motivates them to want to do more and to be great. And with our prospective president being a female, I just think that now it just opens the youth mind, not to just men can do things, women can do things, but our culture can do things as well. Minorities can do things. And it's just important to encourage them, motivate them, not just with the church, not just with voting, but in different capacities, so they can find their purpose in life to be great and possibly be a bishop, be a president. Like, we have things to look forward to, and I think it's great.
Awesome. There are so many opportunities within Zion, but there's so many opportunities within our country for us to be able to lead, and letting your voice be heard is the key for that. So thank you for joining us today. When we've got the opportunity to speak, we have the opportunity to impact. And it's in the numbers where we have our strength. So thank you for being here representing the Charlotte district. So, Andre, talk to us. Did you register to vote? Are you voting? And what are your friends saying about voting?
I registered to vote when I was coming up as 18 years old, so I registered to vote. I went vote yesterday actually at the polls at the library at Bearsville Road, and the lines were like out of like capacity. Like we were waiting in line for hours to get vote. And some of my friends actually voted already. Some friends said they will vote, some said they're not, but they still kind of trying to accommodate about their resumes of both men, Trump and Kamala Harris. So I've been talking to my friends about voting. So some of my friends, they voted actually last week. So I have more friends I'm talking to actually to get them out to vote coming on the 5th of November.
And that's amazing because our next segment is with the gentleman. So we're going to be bringing into the conversation Reverend W. Jarrell Leeper, Brother Nolan Scott, and Reverend Justin Barber. And I am so excited about this piece because this is real application in effect. So we've got Reverend Leeper, who's the pastor of John Wesley AME Zion Church. Thank you for joining us. We've got Brother Nolan Scott, who's a student at a senior at John Taylor Williams Secondary Montessori School. He's also an at-large member of our connectional VICYC. So I'm very excited for him to be able to join us today. And then we've got Reverend Barber, who's pastor of White Oak AME Zion Church. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. So Brother Andre brought it up, and I'm going to put it out there because we are spilling the tea. You've got a friend that you're talking to who tells you, nah, man, I ain't voting. What do you say to him? What do you say to him? So, Reverend Leeper, if you would lead us off.
Well, good evening, everyone. I would say to him, this is the most important election of our lifetime, and you need to vote. If you know who to vote for, look at policies, read up on them, and do your research because this is very, very important. If you don't vote this time, you may never vote again, according to what's going on with with the 2025 project, all that stuff. So you have to do your research, read, talk to people. So this is very important. You have to vote. I encourage them to go with. I'll take. You need to go. So it's very important. So I'll definitely encourage them to go and do the research on the kids.
All right. Reverend Barber, I want to go to you next. I was so moved by what you wrote, the quote that I shared with the Star of Zion in the upcoming edition in November. Would you talk to us about the importance for those who are thinking about not voting, compel them with the words that you shared with me?
Absolutely. As I shared with you, I think it's a misjustice to say that young adults are not actively engaged in this electoral process, which we are. And I said that because many of us are now those working class parents. And so we understand the importance of what's on the ballot. I mean, I agree with Reverend Leeper as far as encouraging, other people that look like me. Right. So I'm an adjunct professor. And so I'm talking to my students every time I get a chance to, but I'm making it practical. I'm making it make sense to them. I can't tell them to go read it because some of them ain't going to read it. I can't tell them to go look it up. Some of them are not. So I'm going to be that voice for them. And I make it make sense for them. Hey, have you heard about what stop and frisk is? No, what is that? So let me break this down to you. So let me tell you, if you don't go vote, this could potentially happen again, right? And what I'm loving about it, Sister Angela, is that when you make it make sense, you break it down, just be practical, black and white with them, it a aha moment happens. And I was so blessed yesterday. I went to go vote, and I saw two of my students in line who originally told me they were not going to vote. So I'm like, okay, something's dinging. If we could just make it make sense to them, put them in that ballot to understand, if I don't vote, this is what happens.
That's absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing that. We again have impact, which is really the reason for even this conversation tonight. Somebody listening who was not planning on voting, but hears something in this space today will change their mind. So thank you all for sharing that. Now, I intentionally shared or saved Brother Nolan for last. He is a student who just had a birthday. So happy birthday, Brother Nolan. So he's got that first time experience going on for him. So if you talk to us now, you are encountering somebody that's not planning on voting and you're all excited about your first time. Talk to us about what that conversation might sound like.
So me personally, I would first ask for their reason for not choosing to vote. And then from there, I would explain the critical nature of this election. Although all elections are crucial, but in this season when our most basic liberties are being questioned, I feel like everyone needs to take a stand. This is not about party or influence, this is about basic living. There are people I know and some who I am close to who aren't eligible to vote, but me being able to vote for the first time, I am proactively talking about how excited I am to finally be able to um, exercise my right to vote. So I constantly encourage people to stand up and let their voices be heard. There will be times where we may agree on things and times where we disagree, but we can always talk through those disagreements. We have to be a country that is able to agree to disagree.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, we've got pastors in this space. We've got connectional officers and district officers in this space. We have a bishop in this space. As we're spilling the tea right now, talk to me about ways we can support our young adults in making that choice to vote and then in encouraging someone else to vote. I'm gonna start with Dion this time.
Thank you, Lady Poole. I think, like Dr. Barber has stated, being supportive to our young adults, but also making it make sense. I think that, like we've already stated, we're not that generation that we're growing up now. Like we're not before. We are adults now. We have the chance to make decisions. We have the chance to vote on policy. We have the chance to really make a difference in this world. And I do want to just put out some data. Reverend Barber did state, like, the young adults, we're here, we're active, we want to be involved. Data for Progress literally released a statement today that said 53% of young adults are eager about this upcoming election. So that means we're eager about it. We're looking at everything. When we flip through the TV, we're looking at MSNBC, we're looking at Fox, we're looking at CNN. We're not just looking at everything about just one candidate. We really want to see all that every candidate has to offer, whether or not it's just the president. We want to look at those laws. We want to, especially in North Carolina, we want to see, like, what do we need to be voting for? Do we need to be voting for the senates that the senators that are voting or that are bringing in different things that doesn't really do us any justice? It doesn't really do us any good. Do we need to be voting on tax increases for our educators who haven't gotten a raise in I don't know how long? So we really need to really look at all of these things when we are actually voting and not really just focus on a presidential election. Because if we vote and we do everything for this presidential election, when it's time for us to vote on the Senate, then we really can't, nothing can really move, because we see it all the time. We vote for our president, and then 2 years later, everything's just locked up because the Senate has just flipped again. But I think just being supportive for our young adults, encouraging them. If they don't have a ride, giving them rides. I know right now at my alma mater, A&T, they are literally making sure that everyone has cars. They have a ride to come vote. We talk about the redistricting. they took the voting place away from A&T. So now students have to find a ride to go vote somewhere. And that's the largest HBCU, and that takes away so many voting powers from those students. But what we can't do is just stay bottled down and just use it as an excuse to say, oh, I'm not going to vote. So just finding those creative avenues and encouraging people to go vote.
Absolutely. Again, that support is key. How can we help the young adults to do what we're asking them to do? So with that said, I'm going to go to the Charlotte district. Veronica, talk to us about how we can encourage and support our young adults.
Well, thank you, Angela. I do like what Dion said, the support, and what everybody said, from Kayla to Ms. Reverend Womack, Olivia, everybody has spoken about support. So what we can do maybe as the church is, um, A&T is in a centralized area, so why not, if we're doing souls to the polls, why not get a church to take a van and let's move some of these students to the polls. Let's make sure they have that, or even offer a snack or food, something. Like, there are things that motivate them that may not be as in something that we desire, but there are ways that we can motivate them to get out, to encourage them. And not only that, if you give them a ride to the poll, that could be an opportunity to also lead them to Christ. You just never know what we can do and what our purpose is so big, how many people we can touch. And I also think that we should focus not on the candidate, but like, Reverend Barber, he always has a good word. Even in this platform, he has a good word. Stop focusing on the people, but focus on the facts. I think that is so important. And I support everything that everybody is saying. It's great. And I also think social media is not all bad. I have a daughter that's 21, and we do sometimes not always agree on some of the things that is presented, but the fact that she's involved, that she's listening, that she's reading and researching, we have to encourage our children, our young adults. We have to motivate them and let them have their opinions and not just shut them down. Be okay with listening to their views and let them decide on what they want to do.
Great
Let me be.
points. Great points. Reverend Leeper.
Yes, I agree with everyone saying. You have to support them, help, take time to talk to them, what's going on, teach them, about the sin and all that good stuff, so they know what's going on. So you have to have conversations with them as well to make you understand what's going on. So conversation is very key as well to supporting them. As more than just the president, like I think Reverend Harris said. So teach them all that stuff you're voting for, education, the deeds, all that stuff. So support them by teaching them and talking to them as well too. I think it's very important too to help them out along this journey.
Thank you. Nolan, you want to weigh in on this one?
Sure. So as a young and first time voter, I will say, I feel like people who want us to vote should take the time to educate us, if that makes sense. I was at a mass meeting a couple months ago, and they were asking us, if we're voting. And I know another person who is my age who is eligible to vote. She said no. And the lady said, why? She asked why. And she said, because we're not educated enough. So I feel like if people want us to vote and, want us to participate in the election, they should give time to educate us about like what we're voting for, why it's important, things of that nature. Even though some people know, like it's common sense to some people, but there are some people that just simply don't understand and think that it's nothing. So yes.
Very valid. I think Pastor Barber's testimony really speaks to that. He broke it down to where they could understand, and two students who were not going to vote actually changed their mind. So education really is key, and giving that support actually looks like we're doing what needs to be done to make sure everybody understands what they're voting about so they can make an educated vote.
Amen.
An educated vote. So there have been some comments that have been really good. There was one that came up. NA actually was the first in the name. Always check your voting eligibility. Many people who believe they are ineligible are actually eligible to vote. And I learned when I was at the General Conference working with Sister Linda Sutton that there are rules about those who've been incarcerated. It doesn't automatically cancel your vote. I also learned at the General Conference that there were people whose names were purged from the records. So not just checking your eligibility, but making sure that when you registered, that registration is still valid, that you weren't for some reason purged, because it happens. It happens. People think they're ready to vote and they find out that their name has been purged. So you want to check your registration and make sure that you're still even included on those rolls. So thank you for that comment, NADH. There have been some great opportunities here, and I want to get Brother Barber or Reverend Barber to finish with that. Hashtag Pat Hunter says, when we vote, we win. Absolutely. If you do not vote, you automatically lose because your voice hasn't been heard. And Broxy Pone is saying it. Someone, I believe that was Sister Veronica, said, church vans, be that support to our young adults by taking that church van that is not being used to take anybody to Sunday service because it's Tuesday. Use that church van to make sure those students are getting off campus into the voting polls, because there's been a challenge with that as well. If I can't get to the poll, it doesn't matter if I'm registered to vote, because I have to get there to physically cast my vote. Reverend Barber, if you would close out this segment for us with your thoughts about supporting young adults.
Thank you, Angela, again for this opportunity. And I think one of the biggest things that I'm finding is very beneficial is finding data for them. I know we're telling them to go do the research. Let's be honest, some of them not going to do it. So go ahead and have a few of those videos. I'm on Twitter, and so I'm finding people on Twitter that looks like me, that's credible sources. I'm saving those videos and I'm sending them to my young adults. I'm sending them to my students so that they can hear a voice that looks like them, that makes it make sense for them. I think representation is very important. So if they see someone who's knowledgeable, because there's a whole bunch of stuff being said and we know a lot of stuff is being said as lies. We need to seek out the truth, find those things and share that with them, and find that short video that they can send to somebody else. And then that other person can send it to somebody else. Then that other person can send it to each one reach one. Is that what they used to say? Right? Yeah. So if we can do that, we can get more aha moments, and then we can get more people standing in the lines to vote.
Okay. So the young adults say it like TikTok. At the end of the day, we give them what they need in the place where they are so they can receive it and then make an informed action to actually make that vote happen. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We appreciate your perspective and we appreciate your support as we support our young people. We're going to shift our focus just a little bit now, and we're going to be talking about leading a civic action charge. So we've got Reverend L. Patrick Bridges, pastor of O'Connor Grove, AME Zion Church. We've got Mark Jarrell, vice chair of the Mecklenburg County Board of County Commissioners. And we've got Reverend Enrico White, Charlotte District NAACP chair. Thank you for joining us, sirs. We're talking about leading a charge. Everyone in this space is a leader in some form or fashion. If we can start off the top of the segment talking about hear the people and help the people. What are some of the challenges that you have as leaders hearing what it is that people need help with? And I'm going to start off this segment. I'm reaching out to the vice chair of the Mecklenburg County Board of County Commissioners, Mark Jarrell. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. Good evening, family. It's great to be here. You know, as it relates to your question, I don't know. We could start with communication is always a major component in any interaction that we're going to have with respect to relationships or any sort of engagement, right? So effective communication is really the top that is top of mind for me when you're going to engage. You know, being knowledgeable about what you're engaging about and educating ourselves. I think it's a great segue from the last conversation where you highlighted and lifted up education. I think that's a really, really important component. But you know, anytime we're going to be leading folks, you know, they have to know where we're leading them to. Leaving it to others to educate us, or leaving it to others to pour certain pieces of information into us could have disastrous results. So I'm always very, very leery and hesitant where we get these sources, the way we communicate, and what that sort of channel looks like, Angela.
Absolutely. In order to lead, someone's got to follow, and if you want them to follow you, the communication has to be clear. They have to know what it is we're all going to be doing when we get to that end point. So thank you for that, County Commissioner. I want to jump over to Reverend Bridges. As a pastor, there are some things that you can do, some things that you cannot do when we're talking about the political realm. Talk to us about leading a charge when it comes to the political realm through the pastor's eyes.
Well, first of all, the pastor has to stay objective, bipartisan. The pastor cannot really push an agenda, so to speak. Ever since we came back from General Conference, every Sunday we have been having what is called voter registration moment. That's something that I listened to what Bishop Barber said at the General Conference, and we got our voter registration liaison. I got with her and I explained it to her. I sent her the information and the video. I had made a video. So I told her what we're going to do every Sunday right after the offering is have voter registration moment. And we're going to start educating our members about the election process first. So the first one was about the whole electoral vote process, really explain to them how that works. And then every Sunday following that, we had a moment that we took time and we allowed different ones to come up and share different information with them. So even though I'm just going to put this out there, it was kind of understood where I was going with the election. I didn't say it because you can't. A faith-based, community, we can't, do that in front of people. But you still have to stand. You have to be, like I said, you have to be a voice and not an echo. And you still got to lead the people in the right direction. And sometimes as a pastor, we have to find creative ways of doing that. And I think really educating them every Sunday, taking that minute to educate them about the process, about the election, about the importance of it. And really, we got together and we got 10 numbers and 10 emails from everybody, and we turned them all in, and we got together and we created a list, and everyone was engaged. I was really happy to see everybody in the church so engaged with it. And Miss Sandra Leeper, she is doing a phenomenal job as our voter registration liaison. And I think as pastors, even though we can't necessarily push an agenda, we have to be there to support our members in every way that we can and show them the importance of the election.
Vital. There was a comment that came up earlier about having a ballot party, doing those creative things that, again, gets the information. Yeah, there it is. Having a voting party, Reverend Jimmy Miller, doing those things that gets the information out so that people are familiar and they're not just hearing something and not knowing what's really going on and guessing when they get to the polls, because that is dangerous. We've got so many opportunities to touch people And one of the ways that we have to be able to touch along the political realm is through the NAACP. So, Reverend White, would you talk to us for a few minutes about what the NAACP does and what you, as a leader for the Charlotte district, what your intention is to try to get our young adults engaged?
Well, one, NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, has always been, since its inception, which, by the way, it at its inception were AME Zion members. The NAACP is because the AME Zion Church is. And it has always been on the forefront of civil rights and social justice for African American people. And while being the NAACP representative for the Charlotte district, that doesn't give me any role within the organization itself, but it does give me a platform or means by which I can engage and ask others of the Charlotte district to get involved, to become a member of, to get actively engaged in the NAACP, the Charlotte Mecklenburg branch, the state and nationally, that we can continue to push social justice for our people, civil rights for our people. Decades ago, I was having conversation with then Pastor William Darren Moore, and now Bishop W. Darren Moore, and he was saying in conversation with someone else that change does not occur from the outside. It only occurs from the inside. So if you really want to see change, you got to get actively involved. Spectators are usually agitators, but participators are initiators and engagers to get things done. And the only way to get things done, be it NAACP, be it voting, be it whatever it is you've got to actively get engaged. Agitating, arguing about will not accomplish anything. But when you put your hands to the plow, you get engaged, you register, you vote, you become a member of the NAACP, and then hold them accountable. Hold them accountable to do what it is that they say that we are about. So as the Charlotte District Rep, I am encouraging members of the Charlotte District to become a member of the NAACP. Don't just be a card-carrying, I paid my money member, but show up for the meetings and hold leadership accountable to who and what we're supposed to be.
All right, thank you. So we've talked about the importance of leading a charge. What are some of the challenges? Let's be honest, it's not easy to lead anybody in anything. What are some of the challenges that one might face, and what are some suggestions you might have to overcome those challenges? And once again, I'm going to start with County Commissioner Mark Jarrell.
Yeah, so some of the challenges can be, when you're leading, no one is following. When you're speaking, no one is listening. You are moving without a plan. You're working without a strategy. So those are some major challenges that you can see, and they're not only applicable to election season, but I think they're applicable to life. Right? You need a strategy, you need a plan. If you're leading, people need to follow, right? You have to be someone that's credible. A lot of times people are leading and they're not educated. They haven't taken the time to educate themselves. They're opinionated, but they may not be educated. So there are quite a few challenges that you can face, particularly if you want to be in this work of advocacy, social action, social justice. You're dealing with very complex issues. They're not always black and white. You don't always get a layup. You're dealing with sensitive issues. You're dealing with issues that families are facing and that they're challenged with and they struggle with. And so a lot of times people sit in the seat of judgment as opposed to really coming from a space of love and humanity and all of those things that bring people in, not push people away. And So, I think those are some of the challenges. I think some of the ways that we address those things, certainly, again, educating ourselves, organizing, and organizing is not having a march of 1,000 people all the time. It can be 2 or 3 folks that are completely committed to an idea and decide at a regular frequency or interval in which they want to engage. They have specific targets. They have what's called SMART goals, right? So those goals are measurable, right? They're achievable. There are so many different elements of those goals. They track those goals. To my pastor's point, there's a level of accountability. So there are ways that we can work to, number one, face those challenges, but also address them. But again, I think you have to be credible. You have to be educated, knowledgeable, and there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? And the way that it's applied. And I think that's big as well. But we should always be leading with the heart and coming from a space of love.
Wow. May Mark, dear friend of mine who's going on to be with the Lord now, Kenneth Quentin James, used to often say, if you call yourself a leader and no one's following, you just decided to take a walk.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. That's absolutely the truth.
If I could just say one other thing, and I apologize though, being a leader also doesn't have a title, right? You don't need a title to be a leader. And I think sometimes we mistake that, right? And you don't have to have a whole bunch of acronyms before or after your name.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, somebody put my title on there. I didn't. I just put my name.
Yeah, we got Star Zion is working on the back end, and we are thankful. Amen. So I'm going to go to you next, Reverend White. So speaking specifically about the NAACP, what are some of the challenges with actually getting young adults to connect with that resource? Because it is a resource for information.
Well, I think part of the challenge with the NAACP, as is the case with many, and it's kind of coincided with other things that I've heard, they just don't know. One, two, they don't feel connected to no one. They don't see where it benefits them. How does that benefit me? How does that apply to me? What have they done that I have seen that a difference is being made? So we've got to be able to show. We've got to be able to say, this is what has been done, not only in 1960, but this is what's being done right now in 2024. These are the charges. These are the cases. These are the things that are taking place right now to benefit you. And we need you to grab hold of what others are trying to do on your behalf. Come along on this ride with us.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm looking at some questions that we've gotten, and I'm going to direct this first to Reverend Bridges. Sandra Williams asked, what are some strategies that can be used to encourage our young adults to go to the polls, especially those who are not in our everyday circle?
I think education is probably the best strategy for the young people, because a lot of them really don't understand, or if they do understand, they're kind of going by sometimes things that they've heard from other places that may not necessarily be truthful. So I guess really taking that time to make sure that you educate them with the right education. I mean, you can't force them any particular way, but you can make sure that you take that time to really give them the guidance, talk to them. Some of them don't have parents to really sit there and talk to them about an election. Some of them, you don't know what type background they come from. Everyone isn't in college, so really take that time to sit down and have real live conversations with them. Like I told my people, go find you one, take them out to lunch one day and just sit there and pick their brain, talk to them, see where their mind is. Take out that little time with them, because I've come across many young people that just flat out said, I'm not voting. I'm not going to vote. I'm not voting. Then there's some that, because of what's, the support that's going on with Israel, a lot of people feel some type of way because of that, and they're not. So you really have to talk to them, really explain the best that you can, articulate it to them the best you can, the importance of exercising your right to vote. I mean, even if you got, just remind them how their forefathers fought for them just to have that right, and it's not something that you just don't do because you just don't want to do it, but that's something that your great grandfather, great grandfather, they didn't have the right to do it. You have the right to do that. Explain to them just the importance of it and educate them about the seriousness of what's going on, how this can affect them now, how it can affect them later in life.
Absolutely. I hear education and relationship repeatedly as all of the guests are sharing. Thank you for that response. I want to kick that same question to Commissioner Mark Jarrell.
So, so the question is, what are strategies that can be used to encourage young folks to come out?
Yes.
Yeah. So, starting at a high level, I say, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We don't. There is no one on the planet that you're going to agree with 100% of the time, particularly as it relates to policy. We are supposed to have opposing viewpoints. It's okay to take a different position and still support someone. Right now in this election, we have clear choices as it relates to policy. I love what the brother said about our ancestors, and I always say, if you couldn't do it, you'd want to do it. One of the things I have to be truthful and say is that a lot of times that is, my thought process is not working with our young folks. And so I found that we have to connect policy issues to them. For Black men, in most of the time, it's about economics. Nobody, they don't want to hear about, the issues need to be targeted to them. People need to connect. How does this impact my everyday life? So if you have one campaign talking about entrepreneurship opportunities, access to capital, educational opportunities, those things are directly correlated to, a young person, right? Or depending on where they are. So you've got to find out what those interests are of those young folks, or anybody for that matter, and correlate it back to the policies that are being advocated for. But one of the problems that we have, particularly as an elected official and somebody that's in this work from this angle, we do not do a good job of connecting the policy to what people really care about. If I'm talking about things that you don't care about, it's going to fall on deaf ears. And of course, you're not going to feel like, yes, I should go vote, and why, even though I know my ancestors sacrificed. So I would just encourage everyone that's listening to please, this is why education is important, because you have to educate yourself on those policy issues, but also encourage them to get engaged. If you don't like what's being said, if you don't like the Middle East policy, that's when you have to get engaged and let your voice be heard.
Thank you.
I just wanted to chime in really quickly because
I was talking to you next, Dion.
yes, because Mr. Gerald said something that's really important: listening. I mean, for us to get young adults out and getting them involved in any type of anything, we have to listen. We have to ask the questions, but we have to wait for the response. A lot of times we think we know what. And I'm a young adult, so I think we think we know what everything is. Like, I think that this group should do this group should do that, and this is the policy that we need to do, and it's because of this, and we're going to get everybody showing up because of that. And then nobody shows up because you didn't listen to anything I said. You thought you heard what you wanted to hear because this is what you had in your mindset. But I think for young adults to get involved in this election process, which we are, like I stated, 53% of us, we're excited about this election coming up. We're still involved, but you still have to listen to us. We want to be involved. There's a YouTube channel or YouTube thing that's going around where there's literally a round table, and it's conservatives and it's Republicans, it's Democrats, and they all are getting involved and they're talking, they're having a healthy debate. And I think in the past we couldn't have a healthy debate. It just didn't happen. It's either my way or it's no way. But we are really together. I mean, we work together. We have we have difference of opinions. I work with Trump supporters. I work with Harris supporters. We are all together working, every single day, and we have this healthy dialogue. And we are at this point where we can finagle in between everything, but you have to listen to us, and we can really have this common goal. But we just need you to listen to us, And I love when the commissioner kind of said, like, we can do these things, like something that benefits us. Like, what's in it for me? We always love to hear this with them, the what's in it for me. If I do this, what's in it for me? And I think that's what everybody has on their mind. Like, if I'm voting for this candidate, what's in it for me? If I'm voting for this candidate, how is it going to damage me? And that's really where we all kind of want to meet in the middle.
Yeah, Dion, let me add to it as you talk about just listen, just listen. And I absolutely agree. But we also have to listen to understand and not listen to respond.
That's right, Reverend. That's right.
And there is a difference.
There is a difference.
And I want to chime in on that as well. When you talk about party lines, I think young adults aren't as defined in party lines, loyalty like their parents. And so it's more about, like Reverend Harris said, how are you going to address my needs? Affirmative action is gone. I need a job. I'm about to start a family, and I need to raise a family. I'm concerned about the social justice issues, the gun violence, all of these things. So how are you going to meet me in my needs? And the other thing I think that is very important as we talk about communicating with young adults and them being technological, we also know influencers is a big thing now. You have a lot of people out there on social media and these that are influencers. They are paid to ensure that you get the message that someone wants to get to them. And so we have to make sure that we are providing for them knowledgeable, impactful influencers that are going to get the message to them that really shows that their needs will be met, and not something that someone has conjured up, even with AI now, to make them feel, oh, okay, they're all about me, because it's not. So we have to be really careful about what is presented, but also know they're not loyal to our party. We want them to be Democrats, but they want to hear what the other side has to say. And maybe they have something that is appealing to what they need or see for their need in the future.
Amen. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us and talking to us about leading a charge. We got some great information, and we're hoping that our young adults are not only hearing to vote, but hearing to lead. Thank you for joining us today. So we've had some interesting conversation, and we've spilt some tea, I do believe, today. I want to give Sister Veronica Shaw in the Charlotte District the opportunity to make any closing comments as we round out our Spilling the Tea conversation.
First, Angela, I must commend you on this endeavor. It was such a great idea, spilling the tea. Everyone that you selected was great, and I'm just glad to be a part of something so wonderful. So thank you for inviting little old me, because I'm just a small person compared to all the people that was on this. But I definitely like the fact that it was suggested to have a vote party. Like, I think that's a great idea. Like, my mind is already spinning. And Dion, I don't know, I may need your help with this, but after you vote or after people vote, why not like have something where when you vote, wear your I voted sticker and let's celebrate or something to motivate, to encourage, like an incentive or something. So I'm excited. Whatever you need, whatever anybody needs to help encourage these young people to get them out I'm in Charlotte, I'm in Concord, surrounding areas. If you need a ride, whatever you need, I'm there to support. And thank you so much, everyone.
Amen.
Well, thank you for joining us.
And thank Andre, I'm sorry, for joining me. I drugged him with me. He is a young adult. And, I just hope that he can step up to the forefront along with us to help encourage his peers and his colleagues to vote as well. And I thank him for joining us.
Absolutely. Andre, would you like to have some closing comments?
Everything that Veronica said, pick it back on. So I'm just thankful to be here and be on live with you all tonight.
Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your perspective. I'm going to jump to Dion. Dion, you have some closing comments for us tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Lady Poole and the Star of Zion, for hosting this wonderful and engaging conversation, this much needed conversation about debunking those rumors about young adult voting. And for all the young adults that are still listening, please get out there and vote. Your vote matters. Do not let anyone tell you that your vote does not matter, no matter what state that you are in, no matter if you're in a swing state, if you're in a predominantly red state or a blue state, whoever you're going to vote for, that's your business. Vote for what aligns with your views and your vision. And like our bishop stated, if you have something that is for you and you want to do something for you, you vote for you. Okay. You don't vote for anybody else. Just exercise your right to vote. We had our ancestors fight for our right to vote. So please just get out there and vote. Have fun voting. Post it. Let everyone know that you are out there voting. I know in North Carolina, they're doing DJs at the polls. So I'm going to be out there voting. I'm waiting till November the 5th because I want to stand in line and have the DJ playing some songs when I go out there and vote. So please just get out there and vote. And thank you all for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Reverend Dion. We appreciate all that you're doing, especially across the connection with the young adults. Bishop Miller, closing comments, ma'am.
Yes, it has been truly an honor and a pleasure to be here. I thank you, Lady Angela and Star of Zion, for this opportunity to share. I just echo everything. Do remind, as someone put in the comments, Project 100, that there are videos that Dr. Broom has put together that can be used. I want to also, just a couple of things I was thinking about. We need to encourage our young adults right now. They need to be the people, because we want good candidates. So we need them starting to look at being candidates, not just at the presidential level. Local level is where it really truly matters. This is an important election, but our local local elections, school board, city council, mayor, freeholders, whatever it is, county commissioners, we need to be voting at every level. And our young people need to know those are most impactful, but we need them preparing to be those who are running for office, good, credible, and people with integrity and morals that are going to go out there and lead. I also want to say one way we can encourage people: no vote is still a vote. If you are a person who is qualified and educated, eligible to vote, and you decide not to vote, and then you get mad because the person you would have voted for didn't win, then you voted for the one that won. So if you want to have a voice in what is going to happen, you have to get out there and vote. And education is that key. We have to educate. We do similar things as Reverend Bridges talked about in his church at St. Paul, where we have that moment where we are consistently educating, make up pamphlets, send them a test, send them a post, whatever you need to do to encourage them. But also they need to see themselves. So we have to continue. And I believe the county commissioner said, we can't wait for people to do what we should be doing for ourselves. It is a travesty when we try to do that and think someone is going to be successful in helping us to train our young people and getting them out to vote. We must be forward in making sure that they're voting, and they have to be able to see themselves and we have to be accountable and responsible for them. So I think this has been extraordinary. It has been wonderful. I thank you for holding this Spilling the Tea, debunking those rumors about young adults. They are the people. They are our future. They are our leaders that are coming up. We want to prepare them, but we want them to be active in making sure that we have some good candidates and that we have a good election, that we try our best to do our best to get the best candidate in. So I'm going to close out for us. Sister Poole, we have some technology challenges, but I've been asked to close out. We thank Sister Poole for her vision, for her leadership, for hosting this. This has been amazing and total kudos. She went to Brother Kent with this ideal and made it come to life. And so we thank her for helping us to spill the tea, debunking rumors about young adults and voting. So we're ready to clear out. If all hearts and minds are clear, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this opportunity and time that we have come for this moment, this time as now, a time which is so crucial in our nation, where we are discussing voting and we're discussing it with our young people and encouraging them, those 53% that are going and those other 47% that are still considering. Lord, touch their hearts, their minds, but touch us that we do all we can do to help them to recognize how important this is for not only their livelihood, but for the livelihood of others. As we continue to follow you, we know that we must deny ourselves. So sometimes just not staying home is not denying. To deny ourselves, we must get out there and do the work. And so we thank you, Lord. We thank you for all who have participated this evening, Lord. Every expression has been valuable, and we pray that we have taken it into our hearts and our minds, and we are reflecting, but we're using it to help all of our people to get out and vote, no matter age, gender, nationality, race, in our community, to do the good work and to exercise the right we have been given. So we thank you. Bless us now as we depart this place. Bless the Star of Zion. Bless Lady Poole. And we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you all and go in peace. Amen.